Assassin's Creed is a franchise that has a lot of entries into it now. In fact, the series is almost 15 years old, and every single time I say that, I feel so abysmally ancient, it kind of hurts my soul. In that time though, we've seen a lot of protagonists enter the series. I mean, after the Ezio trilogy, we pretty much saw the series become GTA thanks to a new protagonist every single game, which meant every single year. And thanks to that, we now have a plethora of underdeveloped protagonists in the series. Protagonists who never got the chance to see a sequel, some protagonists who barely got a chance to see a fully developed story in their own game. So today, I thought I would highlight some of these protagonists in the series and which ones I would love to see get sequels. Now, I know for a fact that none of them will ever get sequels, and we all as fans need to accept that and move on, as sad as it is. Do I wish Ubisoft was interested in character development and, investment in the protagonist? Yes I do. However, it's been 10 years now and we've not got a single sequel with the same protagonist, so I'm not gonna hold my breath for any of these. That being said, first and foremost, we have Connor Kenway, who of course in Assassin's Creed 3 saw his character arc be kind of destroyed. Yet to be perfectly honest, thanks to the cut speech as well as a plethora of other story issues, Connor's character in Assassin's Creed 3 is a bit of a mess. Now, don't get me wrong, I think there is a lot of potential in Connor's character. I mean, the idea of a Native American during the American Civil War, a group of people that are so often just forgot about and kind of rubbed out of history in that period, it's a fantastic idea that could be explored in so much depth, and could really act as a strong critique of both the Americans and the British. It could have seen Connor truly become his own man and pledge himself to a creed that supersedes any national conflict, but instead, in Assassin's Creed 3, he pretty much for half the game becomes a pawn for George Washington. And although by the end of the game he's somewhat shed these alliances, they are by no means entirely gone. On top of that, the build-up of the Homestead missions, crafting Connor as this leader of the assassins, this new mentor after Achilles dies, it was set up perfectly, and it would be really interesting to see how that could expand in a sequel, with the Brotherhood system potentially returning and being expanded on even more. I think it would be an excellent opportunity to further explore Native American culture, to further experience the crafting of the United States of America, and most importantly to develop Connor more into a strong character with clear-cut motivations, and a character arc that isn't cut off 2/3 of the way through. And cue the comments where everyone tells me how good Connor actually is. It always happens. It always happens. Next up, we have Edward Kenway. Now, Edward Kenway is someone that I actually don't think should have a sequel. However, no one is going to leave me alone if I don't mention him. Now, Edward, as we know from the Forsaken novel, as well as other side media, after the events of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, went back to London, became the mentor of the Brotherhood, and then was killed by Reginald Birch. Oh, and he had a couple children in between, but they're never really important or brought up again. But to be perfectly honest, from what we know right now, Edward Kenway's life after his pirating days was a pretty menial one. Menial in the sense that it wouldn't translate to an enjoyable game, not menial in the sense that it wasn't important. He became the richest man in London. But honestly, Edward's character arc in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is done so perfectly and is brought to such a clear and definitive end that I think it would be redundant and potentially ruin his character to see Edward in a game again, especially if it was, him returning to the West Indies and doing a bit more piracy. So yeah, Edward, not a fan. Don't give him a sequel. Someone who absolutely needed a sequel, deserved a sequel, and definitely should have had a sequel, however, was Arnold Dorian. Now, honestly, Arnold, from the start of Assassin's Creed Unity, was set up to be the next generation's Ezio. I have genuinely no doubts about that in my mind. And on top of that, a sequel with Arnold was blatantly set up, again, from the moment Unity begins, as Shay kills Arnold's father and leaves him to be with the Delasseres. To me, Assassin's Creed Unity was clearly an origin story. The story of Arnold joining the Assassins, facing off against the Templars, and understanding both sides' philosophies. And by the end of the game, he seems to come to an understanding of these two philosophies and kind of takes a middle ground, as we see in the Dead Kings DLC. However, by the end of the Dead Kings DLC, Arnold looks ready to retake his position as an assassin, potentially as a mentor of the assassins. And seeing a sequel where him, along with Leo, go to London and potentially hunt down Shay Patrick Cormac, the man who killed his father, would be a fantastic and massively interesting exploration. We could see Arnold come to terms with his grief, we could see him move on from Elise, we could see him build a further understanding of the Assassin Templar philosophy, especially if he came into contact with Shay Patrick Cormac, someone who also experienced both sides. And we could explore a slightly earlier version of London that wasn't so industrialized as Assassin's Creed Syndicate was. Honestly, to this day, I truly believe that this is what Ubisoft originally intended to do. I mean, the storylines of Shay and Arno not only intertwine, but also thematically mirror each other and parallel so perfectly that I honestly can't see see this potential sequel with Arnold and Shay as anything except wasted potential. Like, honestly, it may be the biggest wasted opportunity in the entire series. In fact, I'm pretty sure someone's already made a video called exactly that. So yeah, give me an Arnold sequel. Daddy Arnold Dorian. Give me it. Give me it. Please. Honestly, this is the one I'm still like, please give me it. I still hold out hope. Will we get it? No, but for the love of God, please. It's so perfect. It's so perfect. From a storytelling perspective, from a gameplay perspective, from a historical perspective, from a character perspective. Ubisoft, what are you doing? What the fuck? Assassin's Christmas. On that note, I think it's probably a good time to bring us to the character that is probably most deserving and most desired to see a sequel of. That sentence didn't make any coherent sense, but I think you guys get what I meant. After the release of Assassin's Creed Origins, the entire Assassin's Creed community was pretty much united behind Bayek of Siwa. Now yes, outside of the Assassin's Creed community, a lot of people criticized Origins as a Witcher 3 clone. However, within the community, I remember, I was there, everyone was united, everyone loved Origins, everyone loved Bayek, and everyone wanted to see a sequel. In fact, the seeming idea after Origins release was that we would see an ancient trilogy of Assassin's Creed games, where we would see Bayek go from ancient Egypt to ancient Rome to ancient Greece, which, I mean, like, it's perfect. It's just set up perfectly. At least that's what we all thought. And then we got Odyssey, but that's a whole different issue. Now, although I do love Bayek, and I think his character in Origins is fantastic, it is definitely, without a doubt, 100% underdeveloped, and that goes even more so for Aya. Both of the characters have fairly shallow motivations. I mean, yes, their son died, but that is literally their entire motivation throughout the entire game. And on top of that, neither of the characters come under real true critique of anything they're doing. Although they're faced with physical and emotional obstacles, they're never faced with philosophical or ethical quandaries. And I think that opportunity would be perfect to raise in a game set in ancient Rome or ancient Greece. Now, it very much seemed like at the end of Assassin's Creed Origins, a game in ancient Rome was being set up with Aya as the main protagonist, and then they stuffed it into the last 20 minutes, and I will never forgive them for that. But just imagine for a moment a sequel where for the first 8 sequences of the game, you're playing as Aya, going around Rome, hunting down Caesar, hunting down various members of the Orders of the Ancients, and then Bayek shows up to help, and both of them do bits and pieces. Maybe Bayek even dies, leading Aya to go back to her mother's homeland in Greece, where she can come to terms with her grief as well as build the Brotherhood. Build it from the hidden ones to the assassins, build it into what it would become years down the line, even going from Greece to Turkey to the Middle East to Masyaf, establishing various rituals within the Brotherhood, establishing the Creed in a fully fledged form, setting up plotlines down the road with Altair, Al-Mualim, and the rest of Assassin's Creed 1. In my opinion, there is a lot of wasted opportunities in the Assassin's Creed franchise. The Arnold and Shay game is the first, and this trilogy of games with Bayek and Aya is the second. Especially in the case of Aya, because I truly think that there is so much underlying grief, trauma, interesting character motivations, interesting characterization there. Although I prefer Bayek, I think Aya is far and away the most interesting character in Assassin's Creed Origins, and I think she's so underdeveloped and not given the time to show those interesting traits. And we all know why that was, but we won't mention that right now. The fact of the matter is, Aya in Assassin's Creed Origins isn't a very likable character, and I believe that was fully intended as to see her grow and develop over the following games that were to come. However, once again, didn't get it. We got Odyssey instead. And like I say, the First Blade, we got that too. Shame. Moving on from there, we have Eivor, Varen's daughter. Now, I've spent far too much time with Eivor, Varen's daughter for a lifetime. I've spent too much time playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's made me go brain dead, apparently. However, I do still think that Eivor has some loose ends that haven't exactly been all the way tied up. Now, of course, the DLCs in France and Ireland have built on Eivor's character a little bit more. However, she's still not an assassin. And she should be. She should be an assassin. Her character arc lends itself to joining the assassins. Everything about the final scene of the game where she cuts ties with Odin and relinquishes the idea of glory and power, it all goes back to becoming an assassin. Make Eivor an assassin. I don't care where you do it. I don't care where you do it. Do it in France. Do it in Turkey. Do it in the Middle East. Do it in England. Do it in Norway. Do it in Ireland. Do it in Iceland. I don't care. Make Eivor an assassin. And last but not least, and this is less so looking forward to a sequel as more to a remake or a remaster, Altair. Now Altair of course has a lot of untold stories that aren't explored in Assassin's Creed 1 because of course of the limitations of Assassin's Creed 1, and you know, the story of Assassin's Creed 1 is a very specific story. It doesn't need to include all the information that the Secret Crusade novel had, it doesn't need to have all the information that Altair's Chronicles had. However, if the game was to be remade or remastered, it could have all that information. We could explore the entire life of Altair from the moment that he killed that old man in Solomon's Temple in Assassin's Creed 1 to the moment he dies in Assassin's Creed Revelations. And that is a story I want to see told, because I truly believe that Altair is easily the most underrated character in the Assassin's Creed franchise. I think he is one of the most underrated characters in the entirety of games media. In fact, I'd go as far to say he's one of the most underrated characters in the entirety of storytelling. I believe that Altair needs a lot more respect, and I truly believe he would get that if mass audiences had a chance to see the true depth of his character. Because one, I don't believe that many people have played Assassin's Creed 1, and two, the limited storytelling capacity of that game means that I think a lot of people didn't truly pay attention to his character arc, or at least get fully invested in. And of course, most human beings have not played Altair's Chronicles or read the Secret Crusade novel, because who the fuck reads Assassin's Creed books? Me. I do. I read Assassin's Creed books, but that's just because I'm depressed. I of course don't think Altair should or will ever get a sequel per se, but I do think that Assassin's Creed 1 should be remade with every single piece of content from Altair's life included in the game. It doesn't even need to be Assassin's Creed 1 remade, it could just be Assassin's Creed, the life of Altair, because Altair at the end of the day is the entire reason that this series exists. He is the glue holding the entire series together. He is the root that every single piece of lore, every single plot, every single story, every other character has spread out upon. And for that reason, especially with the 15-year anniversary of Assassin's Creed 1 coming up next year, I truly think that this should be brought to life. With that being said, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you agree with me or disagree with me, let me know in the comments down below. Are there any protagonists you want to see sequels of in the Assassin's Creed series, or you know what, in any other series? Like, is there any other game or film that you just wish someone had a sequel? Like, because I feel like that's the case a lot. Like, characters are just wasted because they're just given one game or film and then never explored again. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit like, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on. With all that being said, I've been Joe, aka Founder Scarab, and I will see you lovely people in the next one.